show a film in a minute of the, it's the May 7, 2023, involving Mr. Pierce down on Highway 17, close to Ravenel in Charleston. That was earlier this year, and then we will discuss another event. We've made some progress on a few items this year when the General Assembly was in their regular session, such as the Certificate of Need repeal, restructuring the Department of Health and Environmental Control, protecting the unborn, school choice, passing a SHIELD law that will allow the law to be carried out at the Department of Corrections, improving an incentive package for Scout Motors, which, as you know, will bring many jobs and prosperity to the Midlands and will reverberate all over the state. But the General Assembly did not finish their work. Therefore, almost a month ago, on May the 12th, I issued an executive order directing the General Assembly to return for a special session to complete the important business at hand and take as long as it would take. Since then, the Conference Committee on House Bill 4300, the General Appropriations Bill, has reached agreement on numerous budget-related matters, but important items still remain. Should they not reach consensus before July the 1st, state government will continue to operate under a continuing resolution that they've passed at the current funding levels. That means with no new spending or no on a variety of items. And they will continue in that fashion until consensus is reached on the budget. However, unlike the state budget, if the General Assembly does not close the revolving door for criminals before they go home, there is no continuing resolution and no contingency plan for that will close that revolving door for criminals. It will remain wide open, as you will see in a moment from some information I'll give you. So I'm asking again and again that the General Assembly pass bond reform, and they also increase the criminal penalties for illegal gun possession. These career criminals, seems that they always have a gun in their possession that is illegal for them to have it for a variety of reasons. Why is this important that they pass these criminal law reforms? They're very important for bond reform and for enhancing the penalties for illegal gun possession. Joining us today is South Carolina Highway Patrol Lance Corporal B.A. Frazier and his wife, Melinda. Around 3:30 a.m. on April 16th, 2023, Trooper Frazier was on duty and initiated a traffic stop after witnessing a vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed on U.S. Highway 78 in Bamberg County. As a Bamberg County Deputy Sheriff arrived to assist Trooper Frazier was shot by the suspect in the face, as you remember. Both officers returned fire and the suspect fled away. Following a long chase, the suspect crashed into a home in Branchville and was arrested. I've watched the body camera and the dash camera video of this incident. Trooper Frazier's professionalism and composure under fire while getting shot in the face and to the ground was remarkable. He embodies the best of the Highway Patrol, law enforcement, and South Carolina. And he's the one in civilian clothes today with his wife. The gun that was used to shoot Trooper Frazier, according to State Law Enforcement Division, it was a stolen gun, which meant it is illegal to have it in their possession. Also, if the serial numbers have been scraped off, filed off, it is an illegal gun. The suspect, Mr. Gaithers, again, according to SLED, was a repeat offender who was out on bond on charges in Georgia. And I'll read some of those in a minute. In addition, on May the 7th, 2023, on U.S. Highway 17, just outside of Charleston, a Charleston County deputy sheriff was shot by a suspect during a traffic stop. This was in the afternoon, I think at about 3:30. A second deputy arrived to back him up just seconds before the shooting started. And we will play that video. Some of you you may have seen part of the earlier video involving Trooper Frazier, maybe you haven't. But this one, I don't think you have seen. Let's play the video.
More updated than this, but that's the only one I can get to right now. All right, hey, hop out. Hop out. Don't reach for anything. I'm not reaching for nothing, man. He's got a gun!
Now, we stopped that just before the fatal shot was fired to the man on the ground. Pierce, Mr. Pierce.
More updated than this, but that's the only one I can get to right now. All right, hey, hop out. Hop out. Don't reach for anything. I'm not reaching for nothing, man. He's got a gun!
Not undertake that kind of public service. And that is the reason that we have been strengthening our law enforcement in this state recently. We've invested in their safety on the job. We've given them new bulletproof vests. And by the way, the bulletproof vests they usually wear will stop a round from a pistol, but not from a rifle. And that's why you see some wearing two vests, one larger one that they had on and one smaller one that goes right over their heart. We've made progress. We've invested in body cameras, bulletproof vests, dash cameras, increased training, and upgraded equipment. But they still face a deadly and daily, everyday threat from repeat violent criminals with guns illegally in their possession, and that was one there that you just saw, and the other was the trooper here with us today. So again, the General Assembly must pass bond reform so that when someone is arrested, when they are out on bond on one crime and they are arrested on another crime while they're on bond from the first, then they should face a mandatory 5-year conviction for that second crime when they are convicted of it. And they must increase the criminal penalties for illegal gun possession. If you've been convicted of a violent crime, if you have a stolen gun in your possession, if you have the serial numbers filed off, any of those things, but the law that upstairs that we're working on is if you essentially are convicted of a violent crime and it involved an illegal gun, then you must get enhanced penalties. If you want first time, 5 years. Next time, I think it goes to 10 to 20, and the next time 20 to 30, I believe. But we just got to keep these people from killing South Carolinians. So now, let's look at the record of the man accused, and I repeat, accused of shooting Trooper Frazier. And I remind you, everyone is innocent unless and until they are proven guilty. And this man, Mr. Gaithers, is certainly entitled to that presumption. Let's start in New York, arrested on 11/6/2002, convicted. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor. It doesn't say what it was. Then he was arrested on December the 12th, 2022 for second-degree robbery. Then on December 12th, 2022, this was all in New York, criminal trespass, third degree, a school or at a children's camp. He was convicted on February the 5th, 2003, to assault third degree with intent to cause bodily injury. He was arrested on July the 8th, 2004, criminal sale and controlled substance, third degree of a narcotic drug. He was convicted on March the 21st, 2005, pleaded guilty to a felony, criminal sale of a controlled substance, fifth degree. That was in 2005. I don't know what the penalty was, but it wasn't enough. Because if it had been enough on all of these, then this would not have happened to Trooper Frazier. Criminal impersonation of the second degree. He was arrested on September the 14th, 2004. Then on March the 28th, 2005, aggravated unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, third degree. That was on March the 28th of 2005. Also, rape. The victim did not consent. One count of that, and also convicted of that, and also convicted of criminal sexual act in February 15th, 2006. That's another felony. Then he was charged with possession of contraband in prison, second degree. That's a misdemeanor. That was in July 19th, 2005. He pleaded guilty to that, or to tampering with physical evidence. Then on August the 30th, 2009, another felony, criminal possession of a weapon, third degree. He pleaded guilty to that. Then he was arrested on September the 17th, 2010. Criminal possession of a controlled substance, third degree, narcotics, drug intent to sell, those are felonies. Criminal possession of a weapon, second degree, loaded firearm, felony. Assault, second degree assault with intent to cause physical injury to an officer, a fireman, that's also a felony. Criminal possession of a weapon, third offense, third degree. Criminal possession of a weapon, third. Criminal possession of a controlled substance, fifth, is cocaine, 500 milligrams. New York, resisting arrest. Unlawful possession of marijuana, and he pleaded guilty on May the 13th, 2011, to criminal possession of a weapon, two, loaded firearm. And then that was all in New York. And then he made his way to Georgia, may have gone someplace in between, because that was in 2011. Now we go to 2020 in Georgia. He was arrested. Possession of Schedule I controlled substance, possession of firearm or knife during commission of or attempt to commit certain felonies, receipt, possession, or transport of firearms by a convicted felon or felony first offender. He was arrested again. That was on April 29th, 2020. Then on June the 22nd, 2022, he was charged with fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer, which is a felony. Then driving without a valid license, that's a misdemeanor. And also knowingly making a false statement pertaining to motor vehicle requirements. Again, that was in June of 2022. And then, of course, we know he was in South Carolina when he shot the trooper. And we know where he is now. That was on, as I mentioned, 3:30 a.m. on April the 16th, 2023. He made his way to us here. Excuse me. That was Mr. Pierce. Let's see. That's Gaithers. Okay. Now also, Mr. Pierce, the man in the video you just saw, also has a extremely long record, and I'll show this to you. I have a summary. I won't go through all of this, but this is what it looks like. Comes from SLED, and it is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. I'll summarize it. And again, this man, as you saw, was shot by the officers after firing at them and is deceased. February 13, 2012, arrested for kidnapping and attempted armed robbery. December the 11th, 2012, arrested for county noise ordinance violation, pedestrian on the highway. September 4, 2013, arrested for pointing and presented firearm at a person. December 10th, 2013, arrested for 2 counts of attempted murder by Walterboro Police Department. Those were dismissed, non-conviction. December 11th, 2013, arrested for 8 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of possession of a weapon during a violent crime and failure to appear on a simple possession charge by Colleton County Sheriff. June 27, 2016, arrested for possession of a weapon during a violent crime and burglary, 1st degree. April 30th, 2017, arrested for possession, sale of stolen gun. That was dismissed and same day it was filed. December 1st, 2017, arrested on manufacturing, possession with intent to distribute drugs, various schedules, all the way up to cocaine and meth. February 10, 2018, arrested for unlawful carrying and possession less than 1 gram of meth or cocaine base. He was convicted of the possession of unlawful carrying on May 23, 2019 for 3 years, suspended on 2 years probation, and the possession 1 year for unlawful carrying ran concurrently. December the 13th, 2018, assault on police officer while resisting arrest, possession of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, manufacturing, distribution of cocaine base, manufacturing, distribution, possession of other scheduled drugs. January 17, 2019, arrested for driving under suspension, manufacturing and possession with intent to distribute other scheduled drugs, trafficking in ice, crack more than 10 grams, less than 28, possession of cocaine first, possession of less than 1 gram of meth or cocaine base first. Then on March 16th, 2021, arrested for violation probation. Then on June 1, 2021, arrested for another probation violation. Then August 12, 2021, arrested for carrying of a weapon. That was dismissed. And that is Mr. Pierce, and you saw his demise there. So what this amounts to, let me mention one more thing. On Mr. Pierce, who is deceased, he was sentenced. This is just an example of what's going on in our criminal justice system. Most of these charges I read out were dismissed for various reasons. Some of them weren't. If any of them had stuck, and if there had been increased penalties for doing it again and again and again, which is what we're asking for, then there'd be people alive today that are not alive today. But this, looking at Mr. Pierce, this is an example. He was sentenced for discharging firearms into a dwelling, and he was convicted and given 5 years. with time served counted in those 5 years. Now, since his arrest and the date he was sentenced on December the 12th, 2013, he was given 9 months off. He got out on December, he would have gotten out on December the 10th, 2018. Again, sentenced in 2013, he would have gotten out on 2018 if he'd spent all the time there, but he got 9 months off. But in any event, he only ended up serving, before he committed the next crime, he only served 2 years and 6 months out of a 5-year sentence. Now, that's not right. And also, based on this record, if the laws we're talking about today with enhanced penalties had been in effect, and if he had been convicted, and it's easy, the evidence is usually available to convict someone of having a firearm illegally, then a lot of these people would not be on the streets today. And as you can tell from the dates of what I have read, these crimes, commissioned charges go way back on both of these men who were doing this shooting. In the case of the man who shot Trooper Frazier, it goes back to 2003. On the case of Mr. Pierce, the first one is in 2011. So when you hear police officers talking about career criminals, that's what they're talking about. It's men and women who have over the years repeatedly done the same thing, different things, all criminal, yet they're still out on the streets doing it again. So what we are asking, for those of us who are here, what we're asking is for the General Assembly, work on that budget, get that done, work on other things, but pass these reforms before you go home, or someone like these defendants who are out there today with long criminal records, we know they're going to do it again. It's just a matter of time, and the next time they may kill someone. And many have been charged with murder in the past and not convicted for one reason or another. You say, why aren't people convicted? It takes a while to get to trial. That's another problem that we have. But witnesses disappear. Memories become vague. You have contradictory testimony. Two witnesses may see the same thing and have a completely different version of what they saw. And when they get on the stand and there are inconsistencies, the jury may think that they really don't know what they're talking about. I'd ask y'all now, what color is my tie? Huh? Did you get it? Is that my phone ringing? Sorry. My point is that's just to demonstrate that the witnesses, if the case doesn't go to trial pretty soon, people forget, people get mixed up, they get tripped up when they're in their testimony. A lot of people, the last thing they want to do is testify. Very often the victims will have big hearts and compassion, and they don't want to participate. But we always remind the victims that this prosecution is for you, but it's not only for you, it is for all the people in the state. We can't let this kind of conduct exist and can't let it spread. So when people commit these crimes, they must be punished, and that's why I'm asking the General Assembly again, close that revolving door before you go home. We cannot wait till next January to take it up again. Mr. Woods, if you please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Rob Woods. I'm Director of the South Carolina Department of Public Safety. First, I want to thank the Governor for his support of law enforcement in the state of South Carolina, but more importantly, I want to thank the Governor for his support of law and order in the state of South Carolina and giving his voice to these critical reforms. There's very little I have to add to what the Governor had to say. I would just say this as a 34-year law enforcement veteran, when there are not serious deterrents to crimes, that only encourages criminals to continue to commit crimes. When we don't take career criminals, as the governor pointed out, and keep them in jail, they're just going to continue to be a threat to our people, to our society, to our citizens. In this instance, I just want to share this with you personally. And believe me when I say this doesn't compare to the notification that Mrs. Frazier got. But at 3:30 on that morning of April 16th, Colonel calls me and tells me we've had a trooper shot. And I immediately want to know, is he okay? But I immediately think how senseless this is. My wife and children, we were on vacation, and I just happened to be in the Charleston area, so I went to the trauma center on that Sunday, and I saw Trooper Frazier. I saw Miss Melinda, his wife, saw the concern on her face, obviously. I saw the condition he was in, and I thought, again, how senseless is this? It's just, it makes no sense whatsoever. But then when I learned what the governor just shared with you, this is a career criminal, somebody who had a gun illegally, who never should have been on the streets. He never should have been stopped for speeding that night by Trooper Frazier. He never should have made contact with him. He shouldn't have been out there. That's when you really realize this is just senseless. This just shouldn't happen. And this should be corrected and can be corrected with the passage of these measures. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I want to thank Director Woods, also Trooper B.A. Frazier, his wife Melinda, Captain Mitch Brown, and Colonel Williamson for being here, and we'll be glad to answer questions. Senior Correspondent, Chip McKinney.
Governor, you've been calling on the General Assembly to enact these measures since January.
That's right.
The Republican leadership in the General Assembly supports them. Where do you see the problem?
It's hard to determine why it's not being done. It should have been done, one of the first things that should have been done. We often don't know who's opposed to what in the General Assembly, because many times the voices are not heard during the session, but in various conferences and so forth. But there's no reason, there's no good reason why this should not be passed, both of these measures. Law enforcement has been calling for these things and others for years, not just this year. But we think now is the time. The more we see things like this that you just saw, and what happened to Trooper Frazier, which was really a miraculous professionalism on his part, firing at the vehicle, trying to stop the vehicle while he was down on the ground, bleeding all over himself with a hole going through his jaw. These law enforcement officers have a hard job, and I don't know where we get such people from time to time. I wonder, why would anybody undertake something so dangerous as this? But it's because it's important and it's a calling to them. But we cannot continue to ask them to do their job to keep the rest of us safe if we don't have the structure of the law in place to keep these dangerous people that are certified dangerous and guaranteed to do it again. Why do we not keep them in jail? Why do we not give them have sentences that make sense and will send a message that the people of South Carolina are just fed up with this? Now is the time to do it. There's no limit on the time that the General Assembly can stay to finish their work. And I ask again, as I have repeatedly, in private and in public, get this done. Let this be a landmark session where the criminal laws of South Carolina fully protect the people of South Carolina. Joe.
They leave if they pass the budget and they're done for the year. Would you call them back again? Can you call them back?
We are contemplating that at this time.
I see you use the same measure that Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott used in court proceedings a couple months ago, showing kind of the realism of what happens with these deputies. Did you use this to kind of play on those emotions as well?
Did I what?
Did you use the video to kind of show us how realistic it is?
Yeah, it shows how realistic it is. I mean, fortunately, many of the people of our state never see a situation like this. You can imagine what would happen if children were to see that. We know what happens because we've seen what happens in schools during the recent years, where trauma has a long-lasting, lingering, and sometimes permanent impact. So fortunately, most South Carolinians have never seen something like this. But it is important that they see it now because they need to understand what's at stake. And it is the lives and safety of the rest of us. And everyone has various rights under the Constitution, the state Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, of their freedom against the government coming in and stopping them. But our view is that when people commit crimes, they forfeit the right of freedom, and they need to be punished. And oftentimes, for career criminals, that means giving them a career jail sentence, and we've got to take them off the street. Yes, sir. It does not make any difference to me. We've talked to the leadership. We've talked to various members of the House and the Senate. They can attach it to whatever they want. They can pass whichever, the House bill, the Senate bill, amend either one, do whatever they want, take it to conference. However they do it, get it done before they leave. Otherwise, it's going to keep on happening. It will keep on happening. It may be tomorrow we may have something like this happen again by some career criminal who's demonstrated his or perhaps her inability to conform to the law. And the law is not asking much. It's just saying, don't kill people, don't rob people, don't shoot people. That's all it's asking.
Governor, for the bond reform bill, it's with the conference committee right now, but they obviously haven't met yet. Have you gotten any indication of when that might happen?
No, ma'am. Well, we get indications that that's where it is, but when something might happen, we don't know. But what I'm saying and what we're saying is that needs to happen before they go home. Now, the state will continue to operate under the continuing resolution. It keeps spending the same amount of money as last year. That's what that's about. But as far as keeping these career criminals off the streets, keeping us safe, when they leave, these measures that I described will not be enacted. They can't, there's no continuing resolution for them because they're not even in the law yet. But it's easy. All they have to do is vote, and that'll make South Carolina safer. So that's what we're asking them to do. And I'm confident that the people of South Carolina feel the same way.
When you talk about the bond reform bill, you frequently highlight the 5-year additional sentence.
5-year mandatory.
It appears that many senators oppose that provision of what is a much larger bill. Would you sign a bond reform bill that does not include that 5-year?
It ought to include the mandatory penalty, because otherwise the right message is not delivered. 0 to 5 years often means 0. 5-year mandatory means 5 years. That is the better way to do it.
And then on illegal guns, it's been attached in the Senate to the fentanyl bill, but in a narrow version that only applies to drug crimes. Is that enough?
No. It needs to apply to all essentially violent crimes, as has been described in another bill. Why limit it to just fentanyl crimes? How about rape? How about assault and battery? How about murder? How about all the rest of them? I mean, it really, these things have been discussed by law enforcement officers and prosecutors and others for so many years. And we know that these career criminals are going to do it again. We know they're going to. Just as night follows day, they're going to do it again. And usually, as we've seen here, usually it gets worse as they go along. So let's put a stop to it. Before they become a career criminal, when they are just working their way towards that status, let's put a stop to it and save some lives, save some heartache, save some tears.
You got off a long
Why should South Carolinians believe that these enhanced penalties will prevent tragedies from happening in the future when that long list didn't prevent it in the past?
Well, a lot of those cases were dismissed is the reason. And a lot of times when someone is convicted, they get out on, the judge will give them probation. Sometimes they are paroled. When, in our state and most others, when someone is sentenced to a number of years in prison, when they arrive, it is calculated by an official, usually at the prison, what their early release date will be. That is, they give them all the credit for taking courses and good time and all of that. So 5 years shrinks down to much less. In this case that I was reading about, Mr. Pierce, he was sentenced to 5 years and he ended up serving, what was it, 2 years and 3 months, something like that. And how'd that happen? I don't know. I know they got credit for 9 months, but what happened to the rest of that sentence? And he committed yet another crime before his 5 years would have been up, or his 4 years and 3 months. We have a revolving door in our state and in other states. And I believe that the members of the General Assembly, as representatives and reflecting the views of their constituents, should truly reflect those views, accurately reflect them, and close that revolving door. How long we go wait?
When does someone determine or show in your mind that they don't deserve a second chance, they deserve to be in jail for this?
No, everybody deserves a second chance, of course, but you need to pay the penalty for whatever you have done. You have to pay your debts.
Time for 2 more questions. Anybody? All good?
Thank you very much.